Welcome to the Soul Archaeology Podcast, a space for connection, resonance, witnessing, and learning. Together we'll harvest medicine from the spiral of life, sharing conversations with other embodied humans who have navigated their own initiations and found alignment with their true soul essence. With weekly astrology, energy updates, embodied conversation, and channeled teachings, this is a space for you to land and find resonance with the spiral of your own soul. Hello and welcome back to Soul Archaeology. I'm so excited today because I have a special guest on the podcast, Becca Kannapell, who is the co-founder of Pound Jewelry, who's also a dear friend, an astrologer, and we are talking all things light codes, light, integrating light, how to work with the stones as a tool, as a talisman, as adornment. You've probably heard me talk about Pound before. I came into contact with Becca in particular in 2018, I believe, through our love for astrology, and we both ended up living in Topanga Canyon 2020 together and became really close friends. I got my first Herkimer diamond necklace from them in 2019, and it was such a powerful resource and tool for me over the last 4 or 5 years. Really helping me activate my throat chakra. I moved to my Mercury line in 2019. My Mercury line runs through Los Angeles. I moved to Los Angeles. I started a podcast with my friend Jess. I really started to open up my throat, did so much work around my womb and my throat, my root and my throat to anchor and activate the messages that wanted to come through, opening up my channel. And I know that my Herkimer was such a powerful aid in that process. It's also just so beautiful, and all of their pieces are so beautiful. It reminds me of like a candy store of just beauty and light and prisms and rainbows. And it's all beauty from the earth, which is my favorite type of beauty. I am such a naturalist. I love anything I wear or adorn myself with or utilize as a tool. I really prefer to utilize things that come from the earth, that are in their more natural state. I have a discount code for Pound, and it's Ali10, and I've had that for quite some time, and you can definitely hop on there and use that discount code to buy a Herkimer, to access something that you've really wanted or loved deeply. I also like to choose a stone that's aligned with what I'm moving through. So I have my pendulum that I wear during all of my sessions. It's obsidian, so it's deeply cleansing, it's protective. It helps me really go into the realms that I need to go into with clients. We do extremely deep work, so I'm accessing dimensions and layers within their field that it's nice to have that extra protection and that extra helping to cleanse my field. They create specific pieces for Lionsgate, which is next week, which in my next episode on the 5th, I will be talking all about Lionsgate and really talking about the giveaway that we're doing together, which I'll talk a little bit about now as well. But the Herkimers are amazing. Energy flows uninterrupted through a Herkimer diamond, and it's the hardest quartz available. Comes from, I think, Herkimer, New York, and it is so beautiful, and it really contains the full purity of clear quartz, and it amplifies intentions, manifestation, and encodes high frequency light into our bodies for assimilation. It's also really cool because it reminds us to be super intentional about our own energy and what we're emitting and what we're absorbing. So it's a really powerful reminder. It sits right, mine at least, sat right at the base of my throat chakra, between my throat and my heart. And it's interesting. It's like a mini recording device, and it really helps to keep us conscious of the words, behaviors, the patterns, the habits that we exude. And it really assists us in releasing what's ready to be released. So it amplifies our preferred energies, which is really cool. I think it's deeply activating for the throat. So if you're interested in looking more into that, I encourage you to go on to Pound's website. You can use my discount code. You can check out all of the different Herkimer options they have. But one reason why I love crystals and I love working with them, I love wearing them, is because they're formed over hundreds of thousands, even million years. And they carry the essence of resilience, strength, alchemy, power. It's all about the story of soul archaeology and why I created this. It's a spiral of life. It's the layers that are created through our own experiences within this life, within others, that create our soul blueprint, that shape and form us as humans within this life and give us our lived experiences and opportunities to really deepen into this life. This is also a very exciting time because we are coming up on the birthday of soul archaeology. She's turning 1 on August 5th at 6:28 a.m. Pacific exactly. And I just really want to spend the next week and a half celebrating the podcast, celebrating all of you, celebrating just this community that's being formed. I am beyond grateful for all of you, for being here, for showing up, for listening, for participating, for bringing your light to this community, to this group. Whenever I begin a podcast, I spend time in meditation, dropping into the frequency, the essence of the group of people who will tune into this podcast. And it's such a special group. I've had guests come on and they tell me they can't believe how incredible the listeners are. And it's true. I just feel so grateful that you have chosen to be here. So thank you. Thank you. I'm doing a giveaway to honor all of you, to honor this podcast, and to honor the next chapter. I'm very lucky that the wonderful ladies of Pound have agreed to drop into this giveaway as well. And they selected a very special, intentional piece for this community. And it's an incredible ammonite necklace. And I'll post a picture of it on social media. When she sent it to me, my jaw dropped and I was just blown away by the beauty of it. And I really wanted it. And so I felt that you guys would probably really want it. And it felt just like the blueprint of soul archaeology and my intention around creating this podcast. So the giveaway includes a free one-on-one session with me. It includes the beautiful ammonite necklace that was made by the beautiful ladies of Pound. It includes the Untamed Elemental Oracle deck, which is what I use for this podcast all the time, and I love that deck so much. It includes the Heba Wood Atmosphere Cleansing Spray from Golda Life. My friend Keiko, my dear friend Keiko, who lives in Hawaii and makes this incredible spray. It's my favorite. I literally use it as perfume. I use it on my clients during sessions. I use it on myself after sessions, and a few other things, a few other little surprises. So in order to be entered into the giveaway, I just ask that you subscribe to the podcast on Apple and iTunes, that you leave a review on Apple Podcasts, a rating on Spotify, that you share it with a friend, and that you share it on Instagram. You can share any episode you'd like, whatever episode resonates most with you. Just sharing it on Instagram, tagging me, so Ali Ofstedal, and Soul Archaeology, and also Pound Jewelry. We'll be keeping track of everyone who is sharing, who's reviewing. And if you've already done that, if you've already left a review, if you've left a rating, you can just go ahead and screenshot that when you share it on Instagram and just send it to me so I know, and I'll put you in the giveaway again. So I'm so excited for this. It's just a way to give back to all of you. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate you dropping in. I hope you enjoy this episode. I'll be talking more about the giveaway on Instagram. I'll be sending out an email about it as well. So if you forget, just look out for those reminders and enjoy this episode. Hello, Becca. Welcome back to Soul Archaeology. I'm so happy to have you.
So much. Yay, me too.
So fun because we talk on the phone so often and text and voice notes. So it's just such a fun way to do an interview style like this and kind of drop into this space that I know will be shared with a lot of people. So
Absolutely. Yeah. It feels calming and grounding just because I know you. And so it's like we're just hanging out.
we're just hanging out. That's right. Yeah, and we get to share it with people, which is fun. And every time we share like a conversation on this podcast, so many people say it resonates. So it's just that interconnectedness between everyone here and everyone present, that there's something within this conversation that wants to land for each one of you, you know? So it's and for me and for you, it's just this web and this weaving of information and wisdom that we're sharing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm excited to be here. Thank you again for having me.
Yeah. So it's been basically a year, just under a year since you were on last time. So this is your second time on Soul Archaeology, and you were there for, I think you were my first guest. Yeah, you were.
And I felt very cool about that. And I feel very cool about coming back. And yeah, and at this very pivotal time and like nearing your anniversary of that year, of your first year. And
Yeah.
it's like amazing to see since you've launched your podcast, it's amazing to see how many people I know on social media who share it, like people I don't know who are listening to it and they're sharing it constantly. And then everyone in my community here in St. Louis, including my family and like most of my close friends here, like, did you listen to her podcast? I listen to it every Monday. And the reflection is really fun because it's like, I know you and I get to have conversations with you outside of the podcast, but then to hear you on the podcast, receive this medicine and watch how it refracts and reflects throughout the people that I love, without me even having to tell them to listen to it. It's just spread and it's medicine and it's loving and it's grounding, a really grounding way to start the week with your energy updates. So it's awesome to see that you have kept it going.
Oh, thank you so much. That means the world. And whenever you share that with me, it's like definitely like a pinch me moment, you know? It's sort of yeah, it's in that space of full trust and knowing that I need to share this in this way and that I'm supposed to start this podcast, and really just trusting the messages, trusting my intuition, trusting source, and where it's leading and guiding the creation of things, which I know you understand because you're in the process of beginning and starting a podcast with your mom and your sister, which is very special. And sometimes you just have to listen to that message and do it and not know what's on the other side of it because there's something, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That feels really true. And it's funny even hearing you say it out loud because we haven't really told many people that we're going to do this, but the microphone is sitting in front of me and it almost feels like there are these turning points in our lives. And a lot of them are astrologically aligned, which sometimes you can see that in your chart if you're able to look at it. But a lot of times in my life, I've had to look back and say, like, oh, that's what was going on then, but looking back into the past, I can see where there were these major pivotal turning points in my life. And I see how the astrology affected them, like I said, looking back. But all of them have felt like if I don't do this thing that feels highly uncomfortable or causes a lot of fear, trepidation, doubt, uncertainty, then it's like a death. It's like parts of self start dying and then more parts of self start kind of melting or breaking off until we listen to the call. And as uncomfortable as it can be, to use your voice and put it out there without fear of how it will be received. It's like the consistent showing up for it is important. Otherwise, the nagging gets louder and things start showing up that are like, whether it's illness or fatigue or depression, these things that make us feel ill or not in our full essence, they kind of keep getting louder until we listen. So,
True. Yeah, it's true because it's that those spaces that hold fear, which really hold the magic, you know, because the fear keeps us separated from self. And so those little spaces where we choose the safety over the fear. And each time we do that, there's little like cracks and fragmentation that occurs, like you said. And that's really the only way to repair that and to create more wholeness and to create more um, integration is by moving through the fear and looking at it. And it's so wild too, because sometimes when you turn and look at the fear, the thing you've been sort of avoiding or walking away from or running from for so long, it's actually not that scary. It's just the anticipation of what could occur, you know, associated with that fear,
wow.
or even the unknown on the other side of it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like it's often not that scary. It can actually be very fun, you
So
know?
fun.
Yeah.
So fun. It's so true. And I've been doing a lot of that work lately because I mean, I feel like we're kind of being squeezed a little bit right now with it is retrograde season and we have, you know, Saturn retrograding, which is forcing us all to take sort of a very honest and less emotional look at what in our lives isn't working, you know, and where we're avoiding specifically or escaping or dissociating from certain things. And I've been having to do a lot of that lately, and it's very confronting, but it's also it can be sort of easy to form a roadmap when you know what you're really afraid of because you can just move towards that.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It's like, what scares you the most? And it's like, go that way. You know? And I think that's like an interesting, there's an interesting place where it's like intuition and fear, where it's like is it something you're afraid of, or is it your intuition telling you not to do it? But a lot of times it's like turning towards that thing. Your intuition will pop in and be like, this is like, keep going or back off. But like at the beginning, at the very precipice, it's like if it's scary, look at it and then like just really uncover like the layers of like what is frightening about it to you and what can be peeled back so that so that the magic that's underneath it can be revealed, or your intuitive discerning eye will pop in and say like, well, this just isn't for you actually. So it's like learning to listen yourself and turn towards that which we are not comfortable turning towards.
Yeah. And I mean, this is a lot of what we were wanting to talk about today because we chose this time in particular to record again. One, it was sort of a year, you know, so we're having a little anniversary, and it is the 1 year anniversary of solar archaeology. The Lionsgate portal is the time. So um talking about that and talking about the courage that it really requires to see what's being illuminated right now, you know, with the influx of light, something we've talked a lot about in our personal conversations, but um the Lion's Gate is so illuminating, and it is a portal of space and time where we get to see what's being revealed in a way that really encourages courage. So yeah, so it's a little pushy right now, but there's a lot available to be worked with.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's been in the last few months, I feel like around the summer solstice and even before that with all of the solar flares. And there's been so much, there's been such a shift in vibration and like such an exorbitant amount of light frequencies entering the earth. And so it's kind of causing what I'm seeing anyway. It's like causing a lot of rattling and a lot of shakeup and a lot of people to be a little um pulled in and out of themselves and experiencing a lot of like very interesting symptoms and also having a hard time grounding or like feeling embodied, coming back into the body. And so there is this invitation, I feel like, with this time of Lionsgate, being that we've already gone through this time of, all these solar flares, and even what happened with the aurora borealis entering, there's multiple theories on that, which I don't know it's true or not true, and don't need to get into it, but just like these light shifts and different coded information seemingly coming in and shifting the vibration and shifting the frequency. So I feel like a lot of people in my world, and myself included, have just been a little scattered and like, how do I integrate this and what do I do? And then with Lionsgate now, it's almost like a magnification of all of that. And Lionsgate every year is like such a huge portal. And as I understand it, it's like Sirius, our spiritual sun, and the brightest star in the solar system. Is that correct?
Yep, that's right.
Um, is rising, and it's visible because the sun, like our sun, gets out of it's like not in the way of it. Like often I think our sun is like geographically, if you will, like in front of Sirius, but you're able to actually see Sirius rising. And so the ancient Egyptians, when they saw it rising, and it forms this alignment with our sun and Orion, and then that was when they predicted that the Nile would always flood. And so it flooded their soils, and which increased their nutrients and their richness and the minerals, and then made for a good harvest. And so it is this time of abundance and manifestation, which is where all of that comes from. But there's also just this like high frequency light coming through. And I always saw it in the past as almost like a literal gate, and that it was like something that the Egyptians like walked through, like in between pyramids back in the day. But what I'm seeing it as this year and now, and after talking to you and other people um, in the astrology realm and spiritual realm, is like what I'm seeing now is that it's like that gate is inside of all of us, right? Or that portal is inside of all of us. And then it's like, if you're open and you're in a frequency that matches the frequency that's wanting to come in, you can kind of like expand into energies that open your heart or open your mind, open your third eye, and open your imagination to kind of move beyond, at least even for a second, to move beyond these sensations of duality, or that right and wrong, or left and right, or up and down, because it's just like much more magnanimous than all of that. And I feel like when you can touch that place, then you're touching a place outside of this realm that's connected to magic and also connected to everything that is, and all the possibilities, all the infinite possibilities. And then how you decide to move with that requires that embodiment piece, because it's like you can expand and you can touch all of this. It's like in a meditative trance, it's like where you can touch everything and feel everything connected all at once, but then we're in this human body. And so then it's like, okay, now how do I integrate that? That portal, that gate is inside of me. It's not a place I need to go to. And then how do I integrate that and bring it into my body so that I can listen to what my body needs? And it has this new infusion of light, possibly, it's theoretical in a lot of ways, because I don't know the answer. I know what I felt, but I don't necessarily know it's true or not. I just know what's true inside of me. But and then it's this like embodiment piece, which you and I have also spoken about so much, where it's like, but I exist on this plane and I have to pay my taxes and I have to pay rent and I have to be in relationship that feels, good for the other person. And so there's compromise and so anyway, just went on a long I went on a journey there.
No, but it's so all of it is so spot on because it's the bridging of this higher consciousness and this 3D plane that we live within, this space that we exist within, that our physical bodies are attuned to, um, which is beautiful, and there's so much power and beauty in being embodied in body and having the physicality, but also learning how to be on this earth and in this body and connected to the higher frequencies, the higher consciousness, and merging those two. And I think
Yeah.
that in so many ways is why we're here, from what I understand, why we're here in this time on this planet is to help our physical bodies upgrade, evolve, shift. I mean, we're in this very squeezed period of time, a golden age where we're evolving so rapidly, and it's sort of like a pressure cooker. We're being forced to evolve, grow, upgrade at a rate that is not has not been common for our species up to this point. We've had different, I think even the time of ancient Egypt, the time of, Sirius being really revered as a god was another golden age, and now we're in one now. So it's just interesting to see how Sirius is still playing a role in the upgrade process and in the enlightenment process, because it really is the spiritual sun. And like you said, the portal, the gateway for higher consciousness. And when we can be of this earth and be in this body and know we still have access to the higher consciousness and the higher frequencies, is I think that's really the key, is like
Yeah.
honoring this human existence and the physicality of it and the beauty of being in a body, but also the higher knowings and the higher consciousness that's available as well. And then it's not a race. It's like this sort of, it's the inchworm. It's like the contraction, the expansion, and the moving backwards and, you know, pulling forwards. And so there's a pace and a process and a flow to that journey that is really intense right now. There's a
Yeah.
lot of these like contractions and expansions. And because there's been, even since 2012, more light entering the planet, there's more
Yep.
consciousness, there's so many upgrades. And I think, like you said, you mentioned earlier, so many people are feeling it emotionally and physically, especially because that's where the density really lies within us, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just like these, well, it's all this re-remembering because it's like, as we were talking about Sirius and ancient Egypt, they revered, Sirius, they saw like, oh, this equals goodness for the land. This equals goodness for the crops. This equals goodness for us. This means like there is an abundance. Like when the light comes in, there's like it reveals, it like unveils this fertile, abundant nature, and that nature and the cycles of nature and the patterns and the weather and the seasons, they take care of us. Not to say that there aren't really hard times and times of suffering, but that like nature takes care of us, and they trusted in that, and they trusted in the cycles, and there is this constant remembering. And I feel that that's part of the evolution, right? That it's all this kind of going back to practices and rituals and ceremonies and honorings that were just so innate originally.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I feel we've disconnected from in our Western world, because there's been much more of this sort of patriarchal, more masculine approach to connection that
Yeah.
has not left a lot of space for earth wisdom, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And because it's so feminine, it's so intuitive. And that's
Totally.
something I love about you, about your family, about Pound is the deep connection to earth wisdom and earth magic and connecting with the stones, connecting with the really ancient wisdom of the stones, which is something you talk about often. And that's something I'd love to sort of shift into is how you utilize the earth's wisdom in your
Yeah.
practices and your embodiment of this higher consciousness and these waves of light that come in because it's a lot, but there are ways to really ground into it and to utilize tools and resources to find more orientation, more grounding, more safety in these big waves.
Yeah. So a lot of it comes down to trust and faith because during these big waves, I'm a highly sensitive person. My sister and my mom are both Capricorns, and they're on either end of the Capricorn spectrum. So my mom's at the very beginning and my sister's at the very end, which I may have talked about in the first episode I was on with you. And I'm only bringing that up. I don't fully know why, but I do know that we're also right now in a season of two Capricorn full moons, being one at the one end of the very beginning of Cancer season and one coming in a couple, one at the end of Cancer season. And I say this because they are able to consistently keep working and working really hard, in my opinion, no matter what's going on in the energetic landscape. I am not that person. So I have to have a lot of trust and faith that the cycles are going, like that the ebbs and the flows, the waves, that they're going to shift. So if it's down, that it's going to come back up, and if it's too high up, that it's going to level out. And so that's for me, like a huge part of working with the family and working with the stones is a lot of trust and faith, because there are moments when like I'll lose a connection if I'm in like a violent energetic storm. And so the practices for me, the other day I sat down at the table, which is where we make the jewelry, and I sat with the stones. And it was like I felt disconnected from them for a period of time. And we can talk about it in a little bit, but like this Jupiter and Gemini season, it's been for me a little erratic and a lot of waves, a lot of ups and a lot of downs. And so there's moments when I'm like, oh, I feel the spark, I feel the connection. And then there's moments when it's just gone and I almost feel like I need to do nothing. And like I can't fully connect because I'm not fully connected to myself. And to me, there's a lot of astrological reasons for that. And then there's a lot of energetic reasons for that in the collective and then in my own personal life. But all this to say, to answer your question in a very long roundabout way, it's like I have to have the trust and the faith that I can always come back to the rocks, and that the rocks are always there, and that they're sturdy and stable, and that they've been, that way for so long. And like we talk about, and we've heard many times how pressure and heat, create the diamond. And so as I go through these processes, I can see that mirrored in what the stones and the crystals have gone through. And when there's that spark of reconnection, it's like lightning. And so the other day I sat at the table with the stones, and it was like I was just saying to them, like, I'm so sorry, I haven't been sitting with you. And I kind of forgotten about you. And I never really forgot, but it's like I just hadn't been paying attention. And I think it's probably, well, I know it's like how a relationship, after the relationship goes on for a long period of time, and you're dating someone for a long time, or you're just very comfortable with them, and you kind of stop putting your attention on nourishing it and feeding it. I've been personally in a phase of not nourishing and feeding the stones. And so I haven't been talking to them, and they kind of stopped talking to me. But when I sat with them the other day, I realized like you're still here, and me just sitting with them and like knowing and trusting that they were always going to be there. But then I was able to reconnect with them in like a totally new way and in a deeper way. And that's a process that I have to trust. And I have to trust my intuition that I will come back to them, and that when I do, that we will be able to communicate. And then it's like within moments, I knew what we needed to make. I knew the colors of the stones that were calling. And then as I start looking into the astrology or into the Sabian symbols or into whatever, it's like, of course, they align, they match up perfectly, and they amplify one another. Whatever's going on in the stars and the cosmos is amplified by whatever stone I'm called to pull, and vice versa. And so then there becomes this communication where I'm just like the middleman that is able to pull the stone that's wanting to connect to this star. And then they weave their magic. And then we are just like intuitively listening and creating from that place. But we've been in a place of having to be in deep surrender and trust and faith that that connection was still alive, because running a business in the last couple of years has been really challenging.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, that's the energy of being in this 3D space, being in a physical body, having to market something, having to sell something, having to, work within this capitalistic framework while also being a deeply spiritual, highly sensitive, and honestly, like a steward of the stones. So it's that bridge. And you're a Gemini, that, you mentioned your sister and mom are Capricorns. I didn't know they were at opposite ends of Capricorn, which is so cool. What a big time for them, and for you being in relationship to them as well. But there's, yeah, being in relationship to the Gemini within you, which is so light and spirited. And I mean, it's an air sign, and it can lean towards the mental, the sort of like cognitive and cerebral end of the spectrum. And the stones they're so cosmic, but they're also so deeply grounded, as well. And so
Yeah.
being in relationship to them and managing a business, it's just, it's a lot, I'm sure. And we're in a time of great change and shifting as well, just collectively. So I think we're all trying to figure out, how are we staying connected to ourselves, staying connected to the higher timeline, the higher consciousness, while also navigating the ebbs and flows of this physical plane.
Yeah. And I would say like the stones, like I mentioned, sitting down at the table with them, it's like they have so much wisdom, and they have so many stories, and they just want to be sat, like they just want time, your attention. And that's why I feel like they're tools and talismans for remembering as well, because it's like putting them on your person, like wearing them, these magical earthen gifts that have been growing for hundreds of millions of years, many of them in the core of the earth. It's like they carry the core, like they carry something from the center. They carry like a point of stillness also from the center that helps us feel in our bodies. And so for me, being very Gemini, and also I think I have 6, 7, or 8, if we're counting some of the asteroids I really like, at least very pertinent points, at least 6 of the major planets that are the most well-known, ruled by Mercury. So like not only am I a Gemini, but like there's so much mercurial energy. And it is something I remembered the other day, sitting with the stones, was like, I have felt blocked, and I have felt stuck, and I know I need words to come out, and words want to come out of me. And so hence the getting the microphone for the podcast, and hence starting a Substack, which I haven't posted on yet, but like say every day I'm going to, words want to come out. And I realized the other day sitting at the table with the stones that they're like, and we're your helpers. Like when I look at a stone or hold a stone, it opens up a world of words because I will go into like, why does this one look like cells, like literal blood cells? And then I will do a little bit of looking because I'm a, mental researcher, and I'll start going down little rabbit holes that will lead to this and lead to that and lead to this. And then it's like the story that was living inside of me has now formulated and come to life because I was looking at the stone and not just looking at it and asking anything of it, just being with it. And then the world that wanted to come out of me opened up because I listened to spending time with this earthen object. And so all of that to say that it's like our business has gone in ebbs and flows, and it had been in a stuck place because I was in a stuck place. And though my mom and sister are as much the part of the company as I am, I I am a little bit of the like energetic leader. It's like when the energy is open in me and flowing, they're like, we're on board. When it's closed down in me and not flowing, then they're like, peace, we want to get away from you. And so I guess I'm a little bit like the middle, I'm the middle, and they're like the rocks and the pillars on the side, but their energy can't move if mine is stuck. And so it is this really interesting trifecta. And so where we're at now is that we're going deeper, and like what I just shared about sitting with the stone and reopening to like all the gifts that they have, and how our gifts are wanting to come through in new ways. But it takes sitting down with the magic, which are the pieces that we're working with.
Yeah. I love that so much. I love hearing about your process of writing too, or channeling really, around utilizing the stone as a an activation or an opening to what really wants to come through and channel through you. And what's interesting is something while you were speaking that came through was the idea that you're right, there's like this stillness and there's a constant energy with stones because they're so old and they're so ancient and they carry so much, they carry an imprint of wisdom, which is the wisdom of resilience
Yeah.
and growth and evolution and change and beauty, all of that that's been formed by pressure and light and heat, And so when you connect with a stone, you're really connecting with that point of wisdom, with that stillness, with that constance, something that's continuous um and we actually have that within us as well.
Yeah.
Our soul has that wisdom, but we forget when we come here because there's a finite essence to the human body, you know, that we won't be here forever. We won't be in this physical body forever. So we get so heady and we're trying to figure out the best way to do things. And we try to micromanage and use our minds to control our circumstances when there's an innate and ancient wisdom within us that can be activated through the stones of remembering who we truly are and what we have access to outside of just the mental space.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're mirrors and they're reflectors, and people are always like, I don't really like this one, but why am I so drawn to it? And then it will reveal itself in time. But like we're always called to like the one that's carrying the medicine that we need, and travel with it for a time. And it's during times like this that it's very interesting to be a jewelry business, because especially a jewelry business that works only with like really intuitively selected and high vibrational crystals and stones, because literally shatter during times like this, like Lionsgate or during an eclipse, like the total crystal shatter. Like I didn't hit it on anything. And it's like they're energetic beings, they're ordered and atomically structured in pure perfection. Like our cell phones use them for the way in which energy can travel uninterrupted through them. So it's like energy is traveling at the speed of light, and energy is traveling even faster at the speed of light through those crystals and stones and reflecting light here and there. And so they're an amazing tool to use during like Lionsgates, like when a lot of people start asking for Herkimers and crystal quartz and crystals that have like a very clear, open vibration. And it's amazing time to work with them. But like they will literally shatter because it's like, I think you might have mentioned something about imploding in your last podcast or one of your last few, where it's like when the pressure builds so much, it has nowhere to go but to implode, right?
Yeah.
And that's a crystal.
Yeah. Well, and it's so interesting that for however long it held that form,
Yeah.
but when it's connected with you and you're connected with it and you're moving through something and you're utilizing it as a resource and a tool to upgrade and download whatever is coming through, that's when it chooses to change form, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of a
Yeah.
mirror for what's happening within our own cells,
Yeah.
and the change and shifts and the way our DNA is changing, the way our cells are changing, literally with this influx of light. But yeah, I'd love to hear more about how you sort of select stones for people, or how people select stones, like kind of that intuitive process. Are there certain stones that are connected with certain planets, certain signs, or is it more of a process of identifying what someone's needing support with?
Yeah. So there's a few different ways. When we first started Pound, it was just people would just pick what they liked. We picked stones just also based on like, that one's stunning, that one's beautiful. It wasn't until, a few years in that I really started researching the healing benefits and like the ancient uses of a lot of stones and like why some were so prevalent, like black tourmaline. Tourmaline comes in every color of the rainbow, but black tourmaline is really well known and crystal quartz is really well known. And those are two of the most prevalent minerals on the planet. And it's interesting because one is like pure light and one is like heavy, dense, and one tourmaline wards off EMFs, and crystal quartz is like used in technology because it like amplifies, and black tourmaline is like dense and grounding and root chakra and protective, and clear quartz is like magnifying and crown chakra opening and connection to the divine and moving energy and manifestation and amplifying and life force and light. And so they're two of the most needed, minerals on the planet. And it is because we need both. And that's also kind of what we've been talking about a lot, is just this like this place of like being in the 3D and then expanding. But back to your question, for real, it's like originally we were just drawn to what we were drawn to, and people were drawn to what they were drawn to. As I started researching more of the benefits and the healings, people were like, oh, I need that. I need that. And reading all the scripture and the descriptions of everything. And then now it's kind of evolved, at least our clientele has evolved, and we have evolved in the way in which we help people, where people will have a specific situation going on in their life and they will write to us and ask like, what's a specific stone for this? And we will either refer them to the gem glossary on our page, or if I have time, I'll go into depth in helping them. And now I offer intuitive astrology sessions, and one of the offerings is like intuitive astrology and then intuitive astrology with a pound pendulum, because we did a whole collection based on the zodiac pendulums and pairing up different energies with different planets and different signs. And what happens in those astrology sessions, which is where I feel very called is to go deeper, where it's not just like, oh, you tell me what's going on and I tell you what you need, but together there's kind of this uncovering in the astrology sessions, in the intuitive astrology sessions, that's paired with the magic of nature rituals and crystal energy and stone energy, where it becomes really clear for both of us. It becomes incredibly like a pathway is opened and the stone that is needed for healing to serve as a talisman for this period in that person's for this period of that person's life is just revealed. It's like so apparent what medicine is needed and what stone carries that medicine. And so it's been like, at first it was just on the surface, and then it was like a little bit deeper. And now there's an opportunity to actually work with the stone energy and create a ritual to help pull forth those, whether it's an archetype or an element or an emotion or whatever it is that that stone helps bring out in us, is serving as like, yeah, a tool of guidance for people. So
Yeah.
many different ways.
Well, it's so fascinating because it is, I think it can be, a stone can be used as a tool, a talisman, a resource really when navigating certain energies or something specific that someone's going through, or maybe they're, in a space where they are taking on a lot of other people's energy and they need some extra support in protection. Tourmaline, it sounds like, would be great. Maybe even like smoky quartz or something that's more protective and cleansing. And then maybe if someone's feeling creatively blocked, maybe it's quartz or the herkimer, or I mean, you know more about this. I know like five basically, but it's just so cool and so fun and playful and also really effective to utilize stones in that way.
Really effective. Like, I'll just give a quick example. Like, a woman came to me for an astrology reading and she did it, the pairing with the pendulum. And I asked her why, where she heard of me and also why she signed up for the, like what her intention was. She's like, I just thought it was cool. I just thought it was really cool that you could get an astrology reading and get a necklace. And I was like, okay, cool. And then she was like, had a lot of planets in Aries. She had a lot of Aries energy. I think she was Aries rising, Aries sun, Aries something else. And she was very fiery and she was very much like, I want carnelian. Like, I want, I want the Aries fire, and carnelian we used as the Aries pendulum in the zodiac collection. And carnelian is a stone of creation. It's a stone of fire. It's a stone of initiation. It's a warrior stone, a singer stone, stone of change. It's very Aries and it's very fiery, and it's also fertile, and like it's also like sacral chakra and creation and birthing and so, but her North Node was in Cancer, and Cancer is like a very different energy than Aries. It's very mothering and nurturing and nourishing and emotional and connected to the moon. And it was really funny because she had received a moonstone pendulum from us as a gift years ago, and she gave it away. She's like, I don't want that. I'm like, but you signed up for an astrology session because you get a pendulum. She's like, I know. It's kind of weird. And I was like, well, you need the Cancer pendulum, girl. And it was funny because I'm like, you gave away a moonstone and you really are drawn to this Aries and you're very fiery. But like, she was like, yeah, this is why I'm doing this. Like, I really want the Aries pendulum, but I know you're going to tell me the truth. And you're right. I feel it. Like, I know I need the Cancer pendulum. And she doesn't look like a Cancer pendulum, but it is the one she needs. And that's made with aquamarine and its flow and it's the tides and the waters and the depth and looking inward and being held. And a lot of times it's like when we need to find balance, it's the exact opposite thing we want to do. Like we kind of into that fear of that unknown and that discomfort and that place that isn't habitual for us. And it's how we evolve.
Yeah. I love that so much. I love that story. And so aquamarine was the Cancer stone,
Yeah.
which is her medicine, which is
Which is
so
her
cool.
medicine. And water puts out the fire, and not that we want to put out the fire, but we want to calm, tame the fire or like bring some balance. And
Balance. Yeah.
I think I think that's really, I mean, that's what the pendulum says. It's like you're going to swing right, you're going to swing left, you're going to swing to extreme this way and then that way, and then you're going to need a little help from your friends to come back to the center again,
Yeah. I
and
love that so much.
yeah, the metaphors, um, the medicine, it's all combined and intertwined. And I will say, like, for myself, and if this is helpful for anyone, great. And if not, ignore me. But it's like, I think that's for me as I ride these ups and downs and these waves and like being here in the 3D and working on being embodied, and which is actually hard for me. But then not losing sight of like my capability to imagine and my capability to get really tapped into the intangible and to the energetics and to the feeling and into the intuition. It's the symbols and the signs and the metaphors and the magic that and miracles that exist, that happen, that keep me seeking that balance. Because it's like, if I'm here and going to be living this life, it's like that magic is what I'm here for. Like I came for that magic and to experience those places of, yes, fully feeling everything and delighting in sensation. And so if this is you too, like just, if that brings you back to life and sparks you to have those magical signs and symbols and synchronicities, it's like it helps me when those come through. And if I have to look for them, I'll look for them, and sit with the stone. I'll sit with the stone as long as it takes until I kind of come back to that pathway of remembering that it's all interconnected and I can do both. I can dabble in this world and I can come right back to the body, and doing them both is what helps me feel balanced. And so also not being so hard on ourselves for not being perfect and for not always having it together, or not always saying the right thing or being in the right, quote unquote, right state. Or it's okay to like to kind of lose your way in order to come back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's being out of that mental space and overanalyzing and future projecting and ruminating on the past. It's sort of like every time we're out of our body, we're out of the present moment, we're in a space of either the future or the past, which is not, it's not a space of safety. It's not a space of magic. We kind of shut down to what's possible because we're not receiving. And yeah, I really love what you said about the North Node and the South Node and the balance. And the South Node really is the tail of the dragon, the North Node's the head of the dragon. And so we need both of them. Like we need all aspects of us. And that's why even in astrology, it's like looking at the chart as a blueprint of your soul essentially. So even the aspects and the placements that you don't love, or maybe are more challenging or aren't as in flow as some other aspects that you have, those are still magical points, and they're points that have created certain personality traits and certain aspects of you that are so essential and so needed. So it's so much less about kind of like shaming yourself and eradicating certain parts. And it's more about integrating them and then leaning towards the highest expression, which is the medicine of the nodes. It's like we want to keep the tail of the dragon. We just want to release the shadow of it. And we want to integrate and become more familiar with the head, which is something we're not usually as like we don't see our head when we're standing here, unless we have a mirror. But like it's, we have to sort of like learn to integrate it and learn to lean towards it. And it's so often not the comfortable place. The south node is much more the comfortable place because we can see it, we're familiar with it. And so that, yeah, it's like honoring our innate blueprint, honoring who we are, while also knowing that there's a lot of growth and potential and expansion that can happen in spaces that we're not as familiar or comfortable with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know we need to wrap up, but I think that brings that of which you just spoke with the South Node and the North Node and what's comfortable and not comfortable and stepping in, to the expansive arena is like very Lionsgate, the infinity, the infinite, head of the tail and head of the dragon and tail of the dragon. It's like that infinity, and it's 8-8, and we're in an 8 year, and it's 8-8-8, and it's back to soul archaeology because it's the spiral, and it's like that consistent, the journey is never ending. And I know that the body has an end, like this physical existence has an end, but the soul's journey, in my perspective, and like what I like to believe and what I feel is true, is like it's like a never ending spiral. And so it's really beautiful that that you're celebrating your anniversary on this day of like, and that the spiral is your code, is your symbol, and that the tail and the head of the dragon again bring us back to that infinite soul journey, and that it is this stepping through and knowing that the portal of infinite expansion is within us. But like, it's not just all about the light. It's, you can accept that light in and integrate it when you've also looked at the shadow, and vice versa. It's like, it's the both and it's our comfort zone and it's beyond our comfort zone. It's what we know, and it's stepping into places we don't know and past the fear to grow into something that we didn't even know was possible. And that is Lionsgate. It's Sirius, the dog star, and the lion, the cat, these like these opposite energies, the light and the dark, the head and the tail, the tourmaline and the life force crystal, Herkimer diamond. It's like these both and then finding the best way for you to integrate, which there are so many tools in so many ways, and the stones are one for me. So
Yeah, I love that so much. Thank you for bringing up the 8-8 and the infinity, because that's so in alignment with yeah, with this podcast and really with, I think this conversation. And there's so much expansion happening within Pound too. I know you guys are you're in a Jupiter return,
oh
right?
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
you're in a Jupiter return because Jupiter is a 12-year cycle. And when Pound was born, Jupiter was in Gemini. We're in a Jupiter and Gemini transit. So you're in a space of rebirth in many ways, that's so powerful. So if you want to share anything around that, I'd love for you to. And
Yeah.
because I think that a lot of people are feeling that right now.
Yeah. Yeah. It was so illuminating and so helpful to know that. And just to know that Pound itself is in a 12-year, like that it's in its Jupiter return, and to look back to 12 years ago when Pound began. And it's like some of the energies of the very beginning, like the very, what's the word when you're conception, inception, whatever, inception,
Yeah.
Pound, those energies are kind of coming back, but there has been this in the last couple of years, like this huge contraction and kind of this death and that shedding, because we were in the south node of energy of our business, where it was like we got really comfortable and things were really comfortable and we were kind of like business as usual and just kind of doing the same thing and going through the same motions. But you can only do that for so long, and then there's like a sort of a lack of inspiration, and then things kind of start to fall through the cracks, and you're not like putting, like I was saying, as much attention on the crystals and the stones, and like it just became, you know, in certain ways, it became like things needed to shed, and things needed to shed in our business, and things needed to shed in the dynamic of the three of us. And things changed and shifted, and we have to change with them. And I think there are parts of us, each for different reasons, that didn't want to change, and then parts that didn't know what needed to change, and then parts that weren't quite ready to shed. And then there's this discomfort, like when a serpent is about to shed its skin, it's just like everything is so irritating. And so then there's a lot of irritation because it's like about to shed, but it hasn't quite shed. And you're in this liminal space of like something dying, but the new thing not being revealed. And you're just like, what is even happening? And I hate this. And then, and then, and then as like some of this, the skin starts to like shed, it's like, okay. I see like we're needing to like step into something a little bit more evolved and a little bit deeper, and that really resonates with each of us and our souls, for the relationship of the three of us and for the relationship we have to our business. And so the Jupiter and Gemini return has been like this kind of influx of the very beginning of Pound and that energy of excitement in new ways, though. And so it's like, it's not in the old ways, but it's in new ways, and taking bits and pieces from the very beginning of it and bringing them back, but in new ways, and creating from new places and spaces inside of ourselves, which for me took a lot of going inward. For me, it took a lot of creating my own sanctuary and my own space. For me, it took like having time away from the business and from the table and from my mom and from kind of a lot of things, trying new modes of breathing, breath work, new modes of prayer, new places to hike, going out into the woods by myself for the first time. It took me like really going inward and communing with nature and like asking, surrendering and asking, like, oh, what would you have me do? Like, if not this, then what? And if this is falling apart, how do I reconnect in a new way? Or also releasing control. And now, as we're kind of putting the pieces back together, it's like more authenticity, more truth speaking, more less perfectionism, less trying to look a certain way, more being who you are, being the creators you are. The facade is starting to like break apart, and really going into a deeper sense of connection to self, and connection to what we're here to bring forth, and connection to our creations, and connection to each other, but with respect for everyone's boundaries, and respect for everybody's needs, and respect for how everybody has aged 12 years or evolved in 12 years. And like everybody's hormones are different and everybody's attitudes are different. And so it's like when you're working with family and women and dealing with your own stuff, it's like really having to go on your own journey and then coming back together when the pieces fit right and healthily. But we're all creators. Like the three of us are artistic creators. So it's like bringing back that magnetism, and Gemini is so good at that. And Jupiter makes everything bigger. And so Jupiter is just expanding and highlighting and enhancing the power of the stories that we want to tell. And I think that is letting the stories of the stones and letting our own stories be brought more out from underneath to the surface.
Yeah. I love that so much. And it's true. I mean, we go through so many different cycles in life, and we go through so many different waves of maturation and fortification and crystallization. And I mean, that's how the stones are formed too, or like they're formed through these different cycles and waves of different pressures and heat and cold and movement. And so that's the journey of any relationship or any entity or any, business, is just being with what wants to come through, what wants to be learned, what wants to, and needs to change, and choosing to lean into that fear, choosing to lean into the discomfort, and having the faith and trust to ride it out. It's like, I always say that with relationships, it's, anything can withstand the storms or the challenges or the separations, or as long as both parties can be present with the discomfort of the change, because change is essential, and it's one of the only knowns within this life, is that it will happen. And so it's exciting for you guys to be in this space of growth and evolution, and being in the discomfort of not knowing what it will look like on the other side. But just like the stones, I feel like they just get more and more beautiful, with time and with wisdom and with age. So it's but I think a lot of people are in this space too of knowing there's so much changing and shifting and being kind of forced into that, but also having no clue what the new form looks like, what the new shape will look like.
Yeah, I don't think I have a single friend that's not going through that in some way, shape, or form. And especially my friends who are entrepreneurs and run their own, um, it's like, okay, I get that it's not what it was,
Yeah.
but like, can we get an ETA on the big reveal of what it's going to be for like, can we just get an ETA? Because it's been a while since we've
Yeah. Gotten an update. We've been
yeah.
ghosted.
Yeah. And it's kind of just like it's been really a squeeze. Like you mentioned that a few times, like it's been a really big squeeze. Like it is a little uncomfortable to say that out loud. And it's like it's almost like by saying it out loud, I'm afraid that people will be like, "Oh, I don't know." It's almost like you don't want to write the script. Maybe it's like I don't want to tell the truth, but it's like I don't want to write the script for somebody else. But it has been, I'll just say it straight, loud, and clear. It's been such a squeeze. And it's like the the impetus to change, or almost like the universe's demand that you will change, is like felt inside of me and reverberating like loud and clear. Like it's time to change.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's no, none of us can escape it, because that's why we're here,
Yeah.
is to change. And there's such a huge collective shift. I mean, there's a massive change happening in the US. We have no idea what the systems structures will look like on the other side. There's changes happening internally. So there's just so much unknown and so much uncertainty. And that's like both really exciting and really scary at the same time. But these are the portals where so much magic is created, because there's, with all of the chaos, is also so much opportunity, you know?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We talked about that the other day too, because it's like with this dramatic shakeup, it's like, yeah, it can be really scary that there's going to be change with all these things crumbling, but like then anything is possible to form.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it sounds cheesy, but like literally look at the stones for that. They've been through millions of years, some of them, of pressure and cooking down and sort of fortifying the shape and the color and um the form that they're in now. And there's so much beauty in that. And so it's just if you can use the tools and find your own center and your own sense of resilience within the storm, it's like there's so much reward, for that. So
Yeah. Yeah. The stones are they're great listeners, and they're great listeners, and they're great just reminders. Like they're just these visible, tangible reminders. And so I
yeah,
feel really lucky that they found their way into my work field and that I found my way into theirs.
I love them too.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited as well. This is, you know, we're doing a giveaway for the anniversary of solar archaeology, and you guys have made a beautiful piece for,
Yes, you did. I mean, you
which I'm
can't see
so
how beautiful it
grateful.
is here, but it's been sitting with us. I have pictures and videos that we will post, but it's a rainbow ammonite, and it's a fossil essentially with an opal and an aquamarine, which I feel are really perfect for reflecting the magic and the light that are being built. And then the aquamarine for the flow during change, and then the cycle, the spiralic nature of life, that it's like always continuously we got to spiral in order to like glean the inner gifts and then go back out into the world and spread them. So it's a perfect representation for it's the symbol of your podcast. And then it's perfect that like I happened to like it caught my eye the other day and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the giveaway piece. So
It's so perfect. I'm gonna have I'll have trouble giving it away because I love it so much. But it just is in total resonance with why I created this podcast and the way I see this work and this lived experience. So I'm so grateful. And yeah, I'm super excited for everyone to, when it's ready, to tune into your future podcast. It's very early birthing stages, but yeah, and also to check out your incredible offerings, your intuitive astrology readings, and your pairing that with a pendulum, which is so fun. I want to do that. That sounds super fun.
yeah, it is really fun actually. They're my favorite. It's my favorite way to do the readings because the stones just like get really loud and it ends up being this almost like this little gift. It's like you get the reading, but like you get this like thing that comes in the mail for you afterwards that like that has recorded the information of your session basically and carries that with you. So and carries that to you. And so yeah, and that's on the Pound website as well. So, and it's always just so nice to talk to you and to be with you and to hear all of your wisdom and your literal channeled heart vibrations and knowing. It's like it's kind of miraculous every time that I listen to you. I'm like, where does all that wisdom come from? But it's always a gift. And so
Thank
yeah,
you
I'm
so
just
much.
grateful.
That means a lot. That means the world. So, well, thank you everyone for tuning in. This is such a fun conversation, and be on the lookout for the giveaway of the incredible ammonite that I'm like loving so much. And yeah, have a beautiful week.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Yay.